very excited to have Carol Morrow and Julia Peyster in the studio to talk about Wellesley, what's happening, and the override. Carol Morrow and her family moved to Wellesley from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan in 2010. She has 4 children. Her youngest is in 4th grade and eldest in college. Carol is a committee member for Yes for Wellesley campaign, and she will serve as an incoming president for the Wellesley Education Foundation the next academic year. She is a member of the Wellesley Hills Juniors Women's Club, and as such, Carol was chairperson this year for one of its major fundraisers, the Wellesley Marketplace. Prior to her move to Wellesley, her work as a realtor earned Carol the recognition as a top producer at Real Estate One, consistently reaching over $8 million in sales annually. By training, Carol is a management consultant. She was formerly with Deloitte Consulting and JP Morgan. Carol received her MBA in economics and marketing strategy from the University of Chicago and her BA in organization psychology from the University of Michigan. Julia is a Wellesley parent of 3 school-aged boys, former PTO president, and a member of the board of the Wellesley Education Foundation as well. Professionally, she's an executive recruiter in the fields of public health and insurance. Welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we're here today to talk about what is happening in our town. So what are all the changes that are ongoing currently? Carol, if you want to start.
Well, it's an exciting time to be part of our town, that's for sure. If you've noticed in our neighborhoods driving by, you'll see some of the Yes for Wellesley signs popping up and sprinkled around the neighborhoods. We have an override coming up May 20th. That's a Tuesday, and we're up for vote, and we're hoping that people will come vote yes for that.
I'd also say that in the schools, we've gotten a new superintendent, Dr. David Lucier, and thanks to participation from townspeople as well as a grant from Wellesley Education Foundation, he started off his time in Wellesley with a strategic planning process that led to a strategic plan. And I guess one of the things we're really excited about is that this override vote is structured around the findings from the strategic plan.
So explain to us in the best possible, or shortest possible, best understandable way, what is this override?
That's a good question. The towns in Massachusetts are funded through property taxes, and every year we're allowed to increase our taxes by 2.5%. If we have a operating budget that needs to be increased by more than that, that is referred to the override. That needs to go to our voting population for approval, and that's where the override terminology comes from.
Awesome, good to know. So what's at stake here if the override doesn't pass?
You want to go ahead, or?
Well, there's the override amount is for $3.3 million approximately. Services from several of the departments will be impacted by that override, from our wonderful libraries to our beautiful parks to our excellent schools. And when you look at the override, $2.8 million of it is for the schools. People that might appeal to a yes vote are basically in 2 segments. We have people that have kids in the school system, of course, that are looking for support from their public schools. And of course, they will be very motivated to vote yes for the override. But we also have another segment who are very interested in the economic value of the properties. And those people should also be very motivated to vote yes, because excellent schools and excellent town services equals higher property values. I mean, 4 years ago, we were looking at Wellesley and other areas to move into from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and not knowing anything about the area, we really looked at first the rankings of the schools. And came up with a short list, and then from there dug deeper to the services that the towns provided, and we identified Wellesley. As a home buyer, you look at all those aspects of a town. And so for property values, you really are looking for a higher demand, so you want to be attractive to home buyers, and a low supply. It's pretty much economics. So if you're looking for an investment, with your taxes, this is really where we need people to see the light and say, yes, this is right for our community. This is an investment in our community and in my interest, in my economic interest.
Wow, well said. Julia, would you like to add to that?
Well, I think one thing a strong public school system does is it really creates a feeling of bondedness within the community.
Yes.
And I think it creates a sense of pride. Whether your child goes to a public school or a private school, you have a sense that you're in a town that values education. And I can say, as somebody who went to both public school and a private school in my lifetime, and then on to college, that the knowing that the place where I lived was filled with kids that had parents who valued education fostered my love of learning. And so whether I was in the public school or then moved on to the private school, it meant that the peers, the people I played with on sports teams, the people I went to church with, the people who I did scouts with, whether they went to public school or private school, they had a similar set of values around education. And that meant that the library was an important component of the town, and a reading program was an important component of the town, and terrific services such as the rec center that we have here, the programs that they offer. That's all because there are people in this community that are devoted to education. So I think that that bleeds over into an override. And I think there are a number of people who, while their children may not right now go to the public schools, value that as a core anchor place and a core anchor concept that is keeping the town alive and well and looking towards the 21st century.
And now, who are the people who are running the campaign for the override? Are they parents, volunteers?
We're
Who are
all
these people?
We're all volunteers.
So tell us a little bit about the organization.
It's called Yes For Wellesley, 2014. Our fearless leader, Susan Clapham, organized identifying and welcoming people to join the committee. Many of us come from community leadership positions, and some of us are just passionate about excellence in education and this community as well. There are 11 of us that stepped up, and we work as a team, and it's been a wonderful experience getting to know these volunteers, and we're all volunteers. That's one thing I wanted to bring to also.
Yeah, so the Yes for Wellesley campaign is specific around this ballot question number 2, and it derives from a group called Committee 21. So Committee 21 is an organization that is a 501c3 and established to set up support for the public schools within the community. And so a lot of this group of mostly parents, but a few people who do not have children in the school system, have done a great deal of work to support the public schools through the legislative process, including town meeting and meeting with advisory, meeting with Board of Selectmen, and then various other organizations and groups within the government, Wellesley government.
Excellent. And let's just to make it clear, what is the extent of the use of school resources, the Wellesley Public Schools in the area for the campaign? How many of those resources do we use? Do we not use? What are the rules?
I want to kind of think about the.
So what can we do? What can't we do to run the campaign as far as school resources are concerned?
I don't think school resources are able to be used for the campaign. PTOs are able to talk about the campaign within their meetings in schools, but other than that, the superintendent's not really allowed to campaign for or against, and the teachers as well. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to get it out there so that people understand that school resources aren't being used to run the campaign
That's
as
correct.
such, but just for the dissemination of information.
Basically, the government employees obviously put the budget together.
Right.
So it is their budget, and by the nature of it being their budget, they stand behind their budget. They cannot go out and lobby, nor can any town employee, from my understanding. Parents functioning as individuals can certainly say what they want and contribute money to the campaign. PTOs, as separate entities from the schools, may both support the campaign as well as contribute. but predominantly the dissemination of information happens through these organizations, Yes for Wellesley, every time that there is a new override, which obviously doesn't happen all that often. And the way that the parents communicate is to work through the channels such as mailing lists and other communications like lawn signs and bumper stickers and, you know, typical if you think of any political campaign, how you'd go about it. Phone calls, letters, postcards, and that is made typically on a peer-to-peer basis with people on the committee. And then obviously there's 11 organizers, but there's a huge number of people that then have been asked to participate in the campaign in these activities that are going to go. It seems like we've had about 5 weeks from when this ballot question became official till the vote on the 20th.
And is there an option to opt out of getting the emails or getting the information?
Absolutely.
Is that easy to do?
It's very easy. Once you get an email and you decide this is not really for me, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the email message and there'll be a feature that says opt out or unsubscribe. You click that and it'll take you to an opt out function that's maybe 1 or 2 clicks after that.
Great.
It's very easy.
Great, that does make it easy.
Yes.
And so tell us about some of the benefits that the override will bring us in case people decide to vote yes.
I would start with the fact that we have a certain program right now in Wellesley that is our K through 12 education program. Actually, it's our preschool through 12 education program, and that is what's always referred to as level service. So that is the program that you have at this moment with the number of staff and employees, including teachers, that are hired. That's level service is funded by the budget, and so I think the statistics are that about nearly 63% of this budget will go to maintain services that we currently expect in the program. So that is the basis upon which this is built. And then there are some add-ons that have come out of the strategic plan. I don't know if you want to take on a few of the add-ons.
Outside of the 63% that will be level services, which again, I just want to reiterate is much needed to keep us, you know, high-level ranking sustainable. We have some strategic initiatives that came out of the plan to go forward for the next 5 years. One would be the house model for the high school. Right now we have 2 assistant principals. The new building is made for the house model. It was with that in mind. So we're looking to add 1 more assistant principal to the administration. And from there, we have about 1,500 students in the high school. Each assistant principal will then have 50% less kids under their umbrella to manage and to think of, with 3 as opposed to 2. So that will be a significant difference in the experience that the high school kids will get out of that model. We also have full day K. 90% of the towns in Massachusetts have full-day kindergarten. We're one of the only. And our teachers are doing a wonderful job with their resources. But having that full day as opposed to the half-day experience really allows them to do much more with our children with the extra time. Imagining having 1 teacher and 20 kids under your belt under the age of 6 is very difficult in 3.5 hours. To have the extra time and the extra pair of eyes and hands to help out really enhances that experience in that schoolroom setting. So we're excited to be on par with almost everyone else with a full-day kindergarten program.
Excellent. Julia, do you have anything to add for that?
I guess, you know, just speaking as a parent myself, what I'm excited about in seeing this budget is that the spending, in addition to the level service, is strategically placed to reach all kinds of kids. So one of the motivators for the full day K was that they found that when students reached the 1st grade, they weren't, a number of them were not at grade level in math and literacy, particularly in math. think nearly 40% not grade level ready.
In Wellesley?
In Wellesley by grade 1. So that obviously becomes an enormous catch-up for the first grade teachers, and a self-identified problem with the kindergarten teachers. So that's one thing that I was just immediately struck by, was programs, the aspect of the programs that are looking at gaps and looking at measurements. And while I know there's a lot of discussion around the Common Core and various other educational movements to measure kids, we don't want to lose the kids in the process. One of the ways that we figure out whether the education we're paying for is actually worth what we're paying for is to measure and determine outcomes. And the earlier you can get to those kids and determine outcome in those formative years, the better off we're going to be as they rise up and are able to take advantage of electives and other really exciting courses in the high school. So also looking at the assistant principals. Until I had a high schooler, I didn't know what an assistant principal did. And assistant principals focus a good deal of their day on discipline, and then they back up the principal, and they also have responsibility for just being a presence in the school and keeping communications open with a wide range of kids, because obviously getting to a child before they become a child in trouble is the better way to do it, rather than waiting till after they've gotten in trouble. As you've probably heard, there's been an enormous growth in the population in Wellesley of kids going through the school system, and it's kind of like a pig in a python. Those kids move through in a lumpy fashion, and they have gone through now, many of them, the middle school, and are now entering the high school. So the high school's population has burgeoned, and I think we're above nearly at 1,500 students. And back in the day when our fearless leader Susan Clapham's oldest child was in the high school, in I think 2001, 2002, she was saying that there were under 1,000 kids in that high school.
Well, that's quite a
So
big
it's a
change.
very significant, you know,
Right.
a huge burgeoning growth. And you can imagine that as those students come up through the pipeline, if there are more of them, there are just more of them slipping through the cracks. I think many of us have heard about the pressures that are on kids in terms of college and in terms of success. It puts an enormous amount of mental strain on the children. And then there's, you know, just for children who are really out on the outer edge of the curve, there's heroin and various other major problems. And these things need to be caught and dealt with. That puts a big strain on the assistant principals. And meanwhile, these people are outstanding educators, and people whose children don't tend to get in trouble because there's such an enormous growth in the population, don't have an authority figure who is working with them. So we talk a lot of times in PTO leadership and in the town in general of the huge middle, the middle of kids who tend to be well behaved, who tend to get average to good grades, and many of us talk about them being forgotten. Again, I just want to go back to what I like about this budget is that the kids in the middle are getting something out of it. The kids who need some extra help, both at the kindergarten level all the way up into the high school, are getting something out of it. And then the one thing that we didn't talk about yet, but I'd like to show my enthusiasm for, is significant new investment in the STEM subjects, so the maths, the technologies, engineering, and science. And so that has a boost. And from what I've been told, there was significant need for investment. Some of the teaching equipment that we were using was the same that had been used 40 years ago. Textbooks, basically there'd be wrong information because the world had passed by the textbook. And
or
so
outdated.
Outdated. The teacher would have to hand them sheets and say, ignore pages 17 through 32. Here's what really is going on now because we've discovered new things. So we're addressing that. And then we're addressing modern language and hopefully moving through this study period, which the superintendent had put in, to look at whether modern language in the younger grades is feasible. So I think we're on this building and momentum. I think it creates an enormous amount of excitement in the town. I think it puts the emphasis on education. And I think it really creates these opportunities for all members of the town to come together whether your child, if you've ever had children, whether your child is in the school system or not, and have a town that values education, lifelong learning, which I think speaks to a wide range of people who live here, that's what your public school does for you. So I'm just excited by the override because I think it puts that message out there and creates a very positive structure. And as we well know, the teenagers and the younger kids play an enormous role in a town like this. And we want to see them have the most positive experience possible because it rubs off on all of us, and really makes a difference in our town.
Those are some excellent points. So it seems like if you don't get the override, then it's a cut in the existing baseline services.
Absolutely.
And with the override, not only do we build on technology, academic materials, as well as social structure and other opportunities for the town as well, especially for the public schools. Would you say the largest portion of the override is dedicated towards education?
It is, absolutely. Going back to what we will be foregoing if we say no to this override, 62%, 63% is on level services. If we don't go forward with this, 25 full-time equivalent roles will be eliminated. That's significant. I'm just imagining increase in class sizes as well as more study halls for our children. The curriculum will really be affected. Its delivery will be affected for sure in a negative way.
And I think that the Vote Yes for Wellesley campaign has also put out a great graphic. It's a nice pie chart, and it splits up all those differences. So we'll definitely take a look at that.
Great.
Thank you.
And to wrap up, tell me briefly how to go about the process of voting. Do you have to register ahead of time? And what about absentee ballots?
Voting, if you're not registered voter at this point, you won't unfortunately be able to vote at the May 20th election. You have to have registered by, I believe, April 30th. Right, with the town.
To vote.
If you are a voter, then absentee ballot voting is definitely an option for many people. They can't get here during the poll times. It's quite easy. You can go to our website, yesforwellesley.com, to the voting information, and it'll lead you to a link where you can print out the request for the ballot, absentee ballot voting. From there, you fill it out, and you can hand it in yourself, and you can on spot vote when you hand it in.
So it doesn't take a lead time of like maybe 5 business days?
It doesn't if you hand it in directly in person.
But if you mail it?
If you mail it, then you're looking at about a 10-day lead time because you'll mail it. That takes time.
Right.
They process it, then they mail you the ballot.
I see.
So there's about a week of time lead time involved there.
Excellent. That's good to know. And then it's also divided up by precinct where you can vote. So then each person has to look up which precinct they belong to and then go to that corresponding area.
Right, on the 20th.
On the 20th.
And there is a link on our website so that you can figure out which precinct you're in. And if it's worth checking that, because if you haven't voted recently, every 10 years they do a census and the districts get redivided. It doesn't typically shift all that much, but it did shift quite significantly for a few districts about, I think it was 2.5 years ago.
Great, that's good information. And then tell us again the website. It's www.
Yesforwellesley.com.
Great. Thanks so much, Carol and Julia. It's a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.